On a seemingly ordinary evening in December 1980, three individuals driving along a desolate stretch of highway near Huffman, Texas, found themselves at the heart of an extraordinary event. It was December 29th, just 2 days before the dawn of a new decade. Vicky Landrum, her friend Betty Cash, and Vicky's 7-year-old grandson Colby were making their way home after a leisurely dinner together. Little did they know that their journey would soon take a terrifying turn, forever etching their names into the annals of UFO lore as the central figures of the baffling Cash Landrum incident. The night was dark and the road ahead was illuminated only by the headlights of their car. The peace of the evening was shattered as a large diamond-shaped object radiating an intense fiery light descended from the sky and positioned itself directly in their path. The object, seemingly engulfed in flames, hovered silently above the road, bathing the surrounding area in an eerie, otherworldly glow. The trio was paralyzed with fear and awe as they gazed upon the inexplicable phenomenon. The object emitted a heat so intense that it felt as though the very air around them was on fire. Vicky and Betty, both deeply religious, initially thought they were witnessing a sign from above, perhaps even the end of the world. Colby, young and impressionable, clung to his grandmother, his eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and terror. As the object hovered, the car's engine stalled and the radio went silent, adding to the surreal atmosphere. The silence was deafening, broken only by the crackling sound of the fiery object. The trio could feel the heat intensifying, causing Betty to instinctively shield her face with her hands. Vicky, trying to comfort Colby, reassured him that everything would be all right, though she herself was unsure of what was happening. The object then began to ascend slowly, and as it did, a fleet of unmarked helicopters appeared, seemingly escorting the mysterious craft away. The helicopter's presence added another layer of mystery to the already baffling encounter. Once the object and helicopters disappeared into the night sky, the car's engine roared back to life and the radio crackled with static before returning to normal. The trio, still in shock, continued their journey home, forever changed by the night's events. They would later report severe physical symptoms, including burns and nausea, which they attributed to their close encounter with the unknown. This chilling incident remains one of the most compelling and controversial UFO cases in history, leaving more questions than answers. The object was massive, easily dwarfing their car in size. It hovered silently, casting an ominous shadow over everything below. The sheer scale of it was enough to make anyone feel insignificant, as if they were mere ants in the presence of a giant. The witnesses couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and fascination as they gazed up at the colossal structure. Its shape, a perfect diamond, was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The edges were sharp and precise, almost as if it had been meticulously crafted by an otherworldly hand. The diamond's shape seemed to shimmer and change colors, reflecting the light in a way that was both mesmerizing and disorienting. It was a sight that defied all logic and understanding. Flames seemed to dance and flicker around its edges, yet there was no smoke, no sound, and no apparent heat emanating from the object itself. The flames were a deep, almost hypnotic blue, adding to the surreal nature of the sight. It was as if the object was surrounded by an aura of energy, a force field that defied the laws of physics. The light it emitted was blinding, casting long distorted shadows across the landscape. It was a light so intense that it seemed to pierce through the very fabric of reality, making everything else appear dull and lifeless in comparison. The shadows it cast were eerie and unnatural, stretching and bending in ways that defied explanation. The object remained suspended above the highway for what felt like an eternity to the terrified witnesses. Time seemed to stand still as they watched, their hearts pounding in their chests. The air was thick with tension, and every second felt like an hour. The witnesses were trapped in a moment of pure, unadulterated fear, unable to look away from the mysterious object. They could only stare in disbelief, frozen in place by a mixture of fear and awe. Their minds raced with questions, but no answers were forthcoming. It was a moment that would be etched into their memories forever, a moment that defied all logic and reason. The witnesses were left feeling small and insignificant in the face of such an extraordinary phenomenon. The object seemed to pulsate, its brilliant light growing more intense and then receding in a rhythmic pattern. It was as if the object was alive, breathing in and out with a steady, hypnotic rhythm. The light seemed to have a life of its own, drawing the witnesses in and holding them captive with its mesmerizing display. This mesmerizing display was both beautiful and terrifying, leaving the witnesses with a sense of dread and wonder. It was a sight that would haunt their dreams and fuel their imaginations for years to come. The witnesses were left with more questions than answers, forever changed by their encounter with the unknown. As the object finally began to ascend, it was followed by a squadron of military-style helicopters. These helicopters, large and imposing, circled the object before escorting it away into the night sky. The witnesses, still reeling from the encounter, were left to grapple with what they had just witnessed. The encounter, however, was far from over. In the days and weeks that followed, both women, Vicky and Betty, began to experience a range of debilitating physical ailments. They suffered from severe sunburn-like symptoms despite the lack of direct exposure to the sun. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and intense headaches plagued them. Their skin blistered, their hair fell out, and their eyes became increasingly sensitive to light. The presence of the military-style helicopters added another layer of intrigue to the already puzzling incident. The witnesses were adamant that these were not ordinary helicopters. They described them as being much larger and louder than any they had encountered before. The helicopters appeared to be escorting the object, maintaining a consistent formation as they disappeared into the distance. The witnesses' claims about the helicopters raised more questions than answers. What were military helicopters doing in the vicinity of a UFO? Were they involved in some sort of recovery operation? The government's silence on the matter only fueled speculation and fueled the belief that something extraordinary had transpired that night on that remote Texas highway. Section 5, John Schuessler's investigation, searching for answers. The Cash Landrum incident, as it came to be known, quickly gained notoriety, attracting the attention of UFO researchers and investigators. One such investigator was John Schuessler, an aerospace engineer known for his meticulous approach to investigating UFO sightings. Schuessler interviewed the witnesses extensively, carefully documenting their accounts and gathering any physical evidence he could find. Schuessler's investigation revealed compelling details that seemed to support the witnesses' claims. He learned from local residents that there had been numerous reports of unusual aerial activity in the area around the time of the incident. He also discovered that a nearby military base, which housed a fleet of Chinook helicopters similar to those described by the witnesses, had been unusually active that night. Section 6. Seeking Justice, the lawsuit against the government. Frustrated by the lack of official explanation and suffering from the lingering effects of their encounter, Cash and Landrum took the unprecedented step of suing the US government. They argued that the government was liable for their injuries, alleging that the object they encountered was a secret military aircraft and that the government had negligently allowed it to cause them harm. Their lawsuit, however, was ultimately dismissed. The government denied any involvement in the incident and maintained that there were no records of any military aircraft in the area at the time. The court ruled that the witnesses' claims, while compelling, were insufficient to prove that the government was responsible for their injuries. Section 7. The long shadow of the encounter, lingering health issues. Despite the dismissal of their lawsuit and the lack of official acknowledgement, the Cash Landrum incident continued to cast a long shadow over the lives of the witnesses. The physical and emotional toll of that fateful night was far-reaching, affecting not just their health but their entire way of life. Vicky Landrum in particular experienced a significant decline in her health. Her once vibrant energy was replaced by chronic fatigue and a series of debilitating ailments that seemed to have no end. She developed cataracts, a condition she attributed to her exposure to the intense light emitted by the object. The blinding light had left a permanent mark on her vision, a constant reminder of that terrifying encounter. Betty Cash, too, suffered from a myriad of health problems in the years following the encounter. Her health deteriorated rapidly, with symptoms that baffled doctors and left her in constant pain. She was diagnosed with cancer, a disease she firmly believed was a direct result of her exposure to radiation from the object. The diagnosis was a devastating blow, adding to the already heavy burden she carried. Cash became an advocate for UFO disclosure, sharing her story at conferences and in interviews, hoping to shed light on the incident and find answers that had eluded her for so long. Her advocacy was driven by a desire for justice and a hope that others might be spared the suffering she endured. Through her tireless efforts, she sought to bring attention to the broader implications of the encounter, raising awareness about the potential dangers and advocating for greater transparency from authorities. Her story remains a poignant reminder of the human cost of unexplained phenomena. Section 8. The Cash Landrum Incident, an Enduring UFO Mystery. The Cash Landrum incident remains one of the most compelling and well-documented UFO sightings in history. The detailed accounts of the witnesses, the physical evidence, and the corroborating reports from other witnesses in the area all point to an event that cannot be easily dismissed. Despite the lack of official explanation and the passage of time, the Cash Landrum incident continues to captivate the public imagination. It serves as a stark reminder that there are still many unexplained phenomena in our world, events that challenge our understanding of reality and leave us questioning what truly lies beyond the realm of the known.